All right, it's sound on, sound on. And I'm excited about this one because everybody's talking about March Madness, who's brackets in, who's out, but we're looking to the future here on Sportswire Radio from our beloved Five Towns Town Athletics programming. Our guest who's on here for the first time with us, I'm telling you, he's definitely going to be somebody that's going to be a first time, long time eventually when all the great things he gets to do here in this program. He's had a decorated career in his own right. He even played here for a period, also played in the NCAA tournament over at Madai College, played with a who's who of players, worked in the G League, worked for the Brooklyn Nets, and he's done a phenomenal job in a short amount of time here trying to transitioning our women's basketball team here at Five Towns. And I got a feeling you're going to like him as much as I'm going to like him here tonight. So with that, wait for it. Further ado here on the Sports Report, number one, the Rebel Sports Show, the head coach for our Five Town Sound women's basketball team that is called Jacques. The coach is here. Coach, where are you?
Hey, I am great. I just wanted to let you know that was probably the best introduction I've had, whether that's high school, college, whatever league I played in. That's the best introduction I've had. So that is for certain. And I also want to let you know. So I'm extremely honored and grateful to be on this show. I appreciate the platform. Obviously, to be able to talk about our program, I think Five Towns College, our Dr. Cohen, President Cohen, Matt Garrissey, our athletic director. I just want to thank those people as well for the opportunity to put me in touch with you. Obviously, Coach Facina as well. But yes, I'm just grateful and humbled to be on this and have a chance to talk about our program.
In fact, I really thought so highly of you. I actually had one of my buddies who was actually an
Mm-hmm.
ex-basketball player here in Brooklyn. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, let's go out. Let's get a bite to eat." I'm like, "No,
Mm-hmm.
Coach Jacques is here. He wants to be on. He's been speaking to me left and right." I said, "We're gonna have to do it another time." But obviously, all that good stuff you said, checks definitely in the mail. But it is a tremendous honor to have you here. All kidding aside, Coach. Obviously, this program here is going through a lot with the women's
Mm-hmm.
basketball team, along with the rest of the program, and I kind of want to set the tables here for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire, because obviously this is the first time we're having you here as the coach. We had the prior coach on here
Mm-hmm.
several different times over the years, but for those that are listening and watching this, I mean, what can we expect going forward with our women's basketball team here in 2023 and beyond?
Well, I think that's a great question. I mean, first things first, Coach Alfaro actually did a great job with recruiting great people, great character. So I want to give credit to him and his staff for what he was able to accomplish in a short amount of time because these young ladies are special, special people with great character. So for a lot of what we're trying to build and what we're trying to do moving forward is, we're trying to continue that model, but obviously adding bits and pieces as well. The character is a huge piece of the puzzle for us as well. Having a chance to coach some great players, the Jordan Tobins, the Maria Medinas, the Abby Kemps, the Nikki Kemps, the Nephili Dorsets, right? Obviously the Sydney Mountains of the world. Having a chance to coach these young women, it's been great. So it was a great template for our program to move forward. Obviously, we came in second place this year. Obviously, we have higher expectations than that. And I think for what occurred this year, being decimated by injuries, our ladies really showed the ability to fight with their backs against the wall. And I think for me as a coach, I was extremely honored. So any young lady who is willing to fight their hardest, whether it's in the classroom or on the court, that's the type of kid we're trying to bring in. So I think there's a lot of great things for this program moving forward.
I have to ask you this question. We'll certainly speak a
Mhm.
lot about the future. We'll kind of recap some of the things here, but I know you've done a lot in your career in the game of basketball. You've been
Mhm.
at a professional level, NCAA tournament, yada, yada, yada. But how did this kind of test maybe your kind of, I guess, wits about you and kind of all the different controversy and adversity that the team went through here with the season the way it ended? I mean, how did that kind of test you in
Mhm.
terms of kind of maybe mentally just
Mhm.
kind of going through that along with the rest of the girls?
No, for sure. That's another great question. I mean, for us, I think for me personally as a coach, being in my first year, there was a lot of bumps and bruises. So obviously, I was learning as I went. But I've been blessed to be around some great coaches, some really smart individuals, and that has helped me be prepared for certain situations. So now we're understanding how to prioritize every single day and maximize our efforts on a day in and day out effort, right? And I think for us in the past, a lot of the players that we have, I think for them, they've been in a tough situation. I always explain to them, you're in a tough spot. You guys have had, since they've been in college, most of our young ladies are about to graduate or be juniors for the most part. We have one sophomore on our team. Most of these young ladies have only played 2 years of college basketball. They've had two different coaches in 2 years, two different systems. So I can understand the change being something they might have to adjust to. So I think for them, it was a challenge, but I think they got a chance to see, my character as a coach, my work ethic, along with my staff as well.
Because it's interesting because obviously, you've had a decorated career, but you never can
Nah,
plan for. Look, listen,
not as much as
you're on,
others.
I understand, but you're on Sportswire here, and I'm gonna promote you like there's no tomorrow. But the fact of the matter is that you've been through different things, right? NCAA tournament, professional, and you can almost never plan for something like this. That's why I find it so fascinating in a way to kind of ask you that question, because also on top of that, these girls also went through COVID. We lost a year from COVID. Obviously, we were covering the program from 2020 to 21, and they sort of practiced. It looked like they were going to play, but the decision was made that they didn't play altogether for 21. Then on top of that, they play basically half a season, a little more than that. Then it's
Right.
like, okay, well, we can't play. I mean, so it's a really challenging situation. I mean, what did you say? Now, don't tell me everything. Don't tip your hand fully. But what did you say when the decision was made that you guys couldn't play the rest of the season? What did you and the rest of the team? I know we heard from Sydney's side, but you're the coach. You're the basically man in charge. I mean, so what did you say to kind of maybe keep the spirits up and keep these girls in a certain way going forward here for the future?
Obviously, for me, there was a little bit of melancholy because I'm accustomed to us trying to play in March in most situations, and I know the
Sure.
success they've had long term. So that's helped set the bar for us. I've just been blessed to be in certain situations where, obviously, where the season was canceled. I've been blessed to be in situations where teams that have won, teams that have lost. So I've had a chance to understand what goes into winning and what also goes into losing. And I think with the young ladies, the conversation that we had was just based around the fact that we needed to, experience some hurdles to get back to the place we need to be. Because I think, the young ladies just have a thought in mind. They were accustomed to winning one way, right? And the challenge becomes, hey, you have a target on your back. Now we have to learn how to adjust to that tempo. We had one of the toughest schedules in the USCAA, so they understood that we were able to compete. And I think for them, they learned to understand, hey, sometimes the chips aren't going to fall your way, but sometimes you
Sure.
need to fail in order to succeed. That's what I think what we had a chance to really learn this year. And I think that was the message, going forward, that, failing is okay every now and then, just as long as we learn from it.
Let me ask you this question because let's say, unlike some other coaches, you're not that far removed from playing the game of basketball. Did, let's say, the girls ask you maybe about your experiences to kind of maybe help them stay positive or look to the future, at least those that we know that are going to come back, like a Jordan or a Sydney? I mean, so kind of maybe talk to me if those conversations came up about your experiences, maybe to kind of help them kind of stay, let's say, above the fray and trust the process, maybe, as some would say.
For sure, that was another one. That was a great one because, truth be told, I actually know a lot of people from the Mountain Clan. The Mountain family up there in Buffalo. I actually,
I did, because I'm big.
yeah,
But no,
very
that's
very
right.
6.5 hours away. So I was blessed to be able to go to college up there. So
I'm going to ask
yeah.
you about that later on. I'm going to definitely ask you about that.
No, for sure. So I was really lucky to have a chance to go to college in that area, and I happen to know a lot of people who trained Sydney. So I know a lot of her background. She's one of those people as well. So I think she was able to find out from other people who I am, as well as get an idea of having conversation, things of that nature, as well as the other young ladies. I mean, Jordan, I'm on her every day. Nikki and Abby had great years in terms of their growth as players. So I think the most they've relied upon me in terms of my playing experience is I believe my confidence in them. Because at the end of the day, I believe, these are the type of kids who have everything you would want in a student athlete. It's sometimes confidence wavers, and I think as a coach, that's where I understood. Hey, there's going to be games where I need to pick you up and not push you down. And I think I've learned, and they've learned to understand that we can rely on each other in that way, where I can be spoken to, they can speak to me, we can communicate in multiple ways and still get our point across. And I think it's helped the overall culture of this program and in terms of just the growth moving forward.
Absolutely no question about that here. We are with the head coach of our Five-Town Sound women's basketball team. That is Mr. Corey Jackson. The girls are getting ready for a big offseason. And I have a few comments on Facebook. First, I want to give a shout out to Skulls, the soul hunter out there, pro wrestler from the EWF, says, Skulls here for some Sportswire radio, and he tells you to fly like a eagle. Reminds me of the Space Jam movie back in the day. Certainly, thank you. Yep, that definitely was. But thank you, Skulls, for the nice, kind words. But I mean, so let's talk about the team and some of the players coming back. Well, we'll get back into some other things, and obviously I want to talk about the future of the program, your story. But let's talk first about Jordan Tobin, because, I had Jordan Tobin on about 2 years ago. And Jordan Tobin, while she might not certainly have the voice of a Sydney Mountain, she certainly lets her talking be done on the basketball court. I mean, what she did this season from a statistical standpoint, I mean, I don't know if anybody at Five Towns is going to really replicate what she's going to do here. You think about what she's done here on the soccer field, what she's done here on the basketball court. It is really special. Obviously, she was Player of the Year this year, well-deserved. I mean, talk about Jordan Tobin, coaching her, what's it like? Because you've been around some great players. You have been around some players that are basically the 1% of the world. So you can tell when somebody's really, really good, coach. So you have to talk to me then, for those that are listening and watching, what was it like coaching Jordan Tobin this past season?
I truth be told, a coach's dream. I couldn't speak highly of her because I think she's everything and more in what you want in a student athlete, because she may not be the flashiest toy in the bunch, but at the end of the day, she is the hardest working kid you can imagine. She is the most dedicated, committed individual I've had a chance to personally coach. I think she's so special. We've had conversation a lot this year. She was actually the first conversation I made, the first call I made after I got the job. I mentioned to her, I wanted her to be the player of the year in our conference. I believed in her. As well as, it helps. My freshman year, I had the player of the year on my team at Medaille University. I also had my junior year. We had a guy who was the defensive player of the year, offensive player of the year, all region, all met. When I had a chance to work in the G League, we had a couple guys who got called up to the G League, Chris Chioza, Thomas Wimbush, a couple of guys to name the few, as well as, St. Dominic, my AAU organizations, things of that nature. So I've had a chance to be around some really great players. And I think Jordan definitely is one of the top of that list. I think she puts in the work on a day in, day out basis. She does not complain. And I think she wants to be coached. And I think that's something as a coach that I look forward to, because that was one of the goals of mine. I would like us to have the rookie of the year, the player of the year, everything possible if we could,
I have a feeling it's going to happen. Listen, with your background, I definitely have a feeling about that. That's why I'm really excited about the program. And I have a comment here for one of our very good friends on Sportswire. I'm going to tell him how to follow Five Towns here. That is, of course, Mr. Michael Germain, a.k.a. Craven Rage, who is the Wrestling Championship Entertainment All-Out World Champion. Says, I love basketball. How do I follow Five Towns basketball? Very simple. On Instagram at FTC Women's Basketball, 5Towns _ on Instagram. All you have to do is go on Instagram there, follow. You can also go to athletics.ftc.edu /sports /WBKB, and you can find out more information on the program, everything related to the Five-Town Sound women's basketball team. So that's very simple. We remember it on Sportswire because we've been plugging you guys for so long here. But I want to come back to Jordan for a second, because I've had her on, and again, she's one of these players, and you've been around a lot of players. You kind of alluded upon it. Thomas Winbush, obviously Medaille. You play with some big time guys that did some big things here. But I mean, in terms of like a talent at this level of Jordan's stature, I almost feel, and tell me what your thoughts on this, Coach. It's kind of rare because this is
Mhm.
somebody in Jordan that could easily be an NCAA player. I mean, you talk about 22 points, 18 rebounds, 20 points, 20 rebounds. I mean, we could
Mhm.
go and list every game, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and how important is it to kind of have somebody like a Jordan to maybe use for when you go out and promote and recruit this program for the season upcoming?
Yeah, again, she's a model testament to what we want here at Five Towns College and what we want to represent this college and where it's going. Obviously, it's history. She's a big piece of our our athletics program, and for her, she's one of those young ladies where I think she, like I alluded to a little bit earlier, she really wants to
Sure.
learn. Eager. She came in situations where she was coming off of ball screen. She was coming off of a pin down. She was in ball screen situations where she's the ball handler as well as the roller. So a lot of situations for her were new to her this year. We challenged her in a lot of different ways, and I think that allowed her to tap into her best strengths because she only had 2 games this year without a double double. She had her career high of 32 points in a game for us this year. She had her career high of 22 rebounds for us this year. She's not the only one. Nikki Kemp, 28 points, a career high. Sydney Mountain, career high, 12.7 rebounds.
I heard
Maria
Sydney
Medina.
say that I think on one of the games she broadcasted.
Mhm.
So I did hear Sydney talk about that.
For sure, all of these young ladies made major improvements. Maria Medina Mata had the best assist to turnover ratio game I've ever seen at Berkeley when we played Berkeley College. Sydney
Yep, I
and
remember that.
Maria both named all academic. So that's something that we're really proud of as a staff. At the end of the day, we would just like to accrue as many players with the talent level that Jordan has. Because at the end of the day, that no matter what, that's going to be hard because there's not Jordan Tobin's just walking around on the street. That much we do know.
Well, I know that. Trust me. Trust me.
For
There's no
sure.
Jordan Tobins don't come every
For
single
sure.
day. I mean, so
Hmm.
certainly, I would certainly agree with you on that. And Craven Rage has a funny comment. He says it sounds like she's related to Michael Jordan, Coach. Well, Jordan played like Michael Jordan for 5 times. I definitely
she
think that Jordan does.
she's got to eat the same stuff as him. That's my opinion.
I
I
tell
think
you what, I mean, I've watched her
drink the
play. I've
same
watched her
stuff.
play soccer, and what
Hmm.
this girl does, one more thing on it. What's so
Hmm.
to me amazing about Jordan Tobin is that in
Hmm.
addition to being a great player on the soccer field and in the basketball court, she was
Hmm.
working a full-time job. She was going to school. I mean, you know that grind. You've played.
Hmm.
You've also been with the pros. I mean, just how hard is it to do what Jordan has done, being a student, holding a job, responsibilities, and then, oh, by the way, dealing with you and your coaching abilities and everything else like
Hmm.
that. So, like, just talk
Hmm.
about how difficult it because I think sometimes people don't realize at this level, whether it's at D3 or certainly here in the Hudson Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, just how difficult it is for these athletes to
Hmm.
be able to do what they're doing.
I That's another thing that our conference provides as well. It's a lot of opportunity for our kids to have work-life balance. As you know, with some other coaches you guys have had on here, it's a little bit tougher for their athletes. We have a little bit more flexibility at our level, so I think that provides a little bit better mental health for our young ladies. We also do something really cool, which is we offer the young ladies 2 mental health days a month, which has kind of helped them have a good open line of communication with our coaching staff. My assistant coach Ashley Jackson, our another assistant coach Justin
Yes,
Stanley.
we know Coach Jackson very, very
Yes,
well here on
no,
Sportswire.
for sure.
She's a good
Hmm.
a friend of the brute force, Mr. Brad
Hmm.
Weiss. So we know Ashley Jackson very
For
well.
sure. She's doing some great things in the women basketball
Yes,
space, as well as our assistant coach, another assistant coach as well, Justin Stanley. Both of those
yes.
two have been amazing throughout this whole process. And, honestly, when it comes to the situation we had to deal with this year, it was the best scenario for our ladies to learn from. And I think moving forward, it's the type of situation that is going to fuel us to be great, for sure.
I definitely think so, and obviously this team has tasted some success
Mm,
winning the Hudson Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Conference the prior year. So I have no doubt that you guys will do that here. And Skulls also says you don't want to burn your players out. You
mm,
said something about mental health, and I know
mm,
mental health's been kind of a big thing. I'm a bit
mm,
older than you, and I never would have thought there'd be a day where you'd have mental health days. I know you played
mm.
not too long ago. I mean, is that something that's been recent, kind of, in giving players like a mental health day or two here and there? And how important is that maybe for them in terms of just their overall, maybe on and off the court abilities?
For certain. And I think, that's a great question as well. I think for the young ladies, young women that we have in our program, a lot of them are great students, great people. However, they're also normal human beings, right? Who experience
Sure.
feelings, emotions, just like the rest of us. And I think with so much dedication and commitment to our practice schedule, something that I do a little bit different. I sometimes like 2 hour plus, almost 3 hour practices, more so towards the preseason. My thing is, I like to make sure the ladies have enough knowledge to feel like they can go out there and execute at a very high level. So it's been an adjustment in that regard. But if you can't touch up on the question one more time.
Basically, in terms of the mental health, because I thought it
Yeah.
was fascinating that you brought that up. Because we've had
Mhm.
different coaches on. Even Coach Facina's been on here a bunch of times.
Mhm.
Coach Frizzell here at 5,000, and I didn't realize that that would be something that would be instituted and also maybe helpful in a way. Because, like I said, you played the game not
Mhm.
too long ago, and obviously, I'm a bit older than you, and I kind of feel that in a way, just this mental health thing where maybe giving the players a day or two I
Mhm.
kind of think might be a lot more helpful than the average person would realize based on what their schedule is like. And, just maybe touch upon, is that something that's been kind of recently instituted? I mean, did they have that when you were playing? Because I know Brad Weiss played, and
Mhm.
Brad, I think you were
Mhm.
a couple, like 2 years before Brad started in St. Joe's.
Mhm.
And I was just curious because I feel like that's something that's recently kind of been instituted. I mean, just talk about
Mhm.
the importance of that then.
For sure. So, truth be told, I had an opportunity when I worked in the NBA. I worked under Joe Cuomo, as well as a guy named Kevin Conwell, two guys who worked closely under Sean Marks and with the coaches,
Yes.
Jacques Vaughn, Kenny Atkinson at the time. So, a lot of what they would do is that would be a bridge for their players to understand, hey, there's sometimes some days where we're not going to understand exactly what's going on in your head. So, as long as you give us a 24-hour notice about what's going on, it helps create a trust, a level of trust between the players and our
Sure.
coaching staff. Because my opinion is, as a coach, I know how it is as a player. There's some days where you just don't want to see their faces, and trust me, our
Trust
practices
me,
are
people
very
don't want to
important.
see my faces on Sportswire half the time.
Mhm.
The wrestlers that want to beat me up, the
Mhm.
athletes, the people that come on and comment on these shows.
Mhm.
Trust me, coach, don't feel too bad. I get it
Mhm.
more than anybody else.
No, for sure. And that's the thing about our practices as well, where we are very intense. It may not be 3 hours worth of basketball, but when we're doing something, we're very intense about it. And I think that's the thing where mental health is very applicable, because we want our students to have work-life balance, obviously, where they're able to balance their schoolwork and the basketball side of things. And as a staff, we got a chance to learn that this year, and just understand how we needed to lock in on these young ladies and their academics and the athletic aspect to it all. The second half of the year, we finished up going 2-1 overall record wise, right? So
I know you guys.
67%.
You guys, I kind of felt it. I know we spoke about this off the air. That
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt you guys were peaking, and kind of you guys had turned the corner here, and that's why it was so disappointing. I know to everybody involved at what had happened, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that you guys, legitimately speaking, obviously following the team, we were getting ready to obviously cover the men's team, and we
Mm-hmm.
were watching from afar here. And I kind of think, as a lot of people did on campus, that you guys probably were poised to repeat and win that Hudson Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. I really believe that.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because I've had the conversation with my coaches, like we can't have a trend where it's we win one, we lose one, we win one, we lose one. So we want to make sure we're doing everything we can in our power to make sure that we can look forward to the future and make sure that we're bringing in the right type of student athletes to secure that type of run again, because we have obviously the player of the year. That's a big piece of the puzzle. And I think for us, it helps paint the picture of where we want to be as a program, in our athletics program, because this women's basketball team has already won a championship. We want this program to have sustained success, right? I always tell our kids, we want to have marinated success, right? Not microwavable success. So I think for us, that's where we want to be. We want to start sustaining that marinated success.
Well, I know of a coach here that really got the ball rolling here at Five Towns, who
Mhm.
knows a thing or two about continued success, and his name was John Matejko. And obviously,
Mhm.
we'll definitely get into Coach Matejko in a little while here for sure. And I want to give a couple of more comments here. Jason Facina tunes in here and
Mhm.
says, "Coach," with an exclamation point. I want to give a shout out to
Oh,
Jeff Litwin.
what's going on,
Jeff
coach?
Litwin just shared our show on Instagram. And anything you want to say actually about Coach Facina, and maybe kind of how
Mhm.
institutional and he's been, and kind of just instrumental maybe to you and everybody else? I know he has an additional role here at the program aside of being the coach here for
Mhm.
the men's soccer team. He held the title for the women's soccer team, but also he's an assistant AD here at Five Towns. And just talk about Coach Facina because he also has coached in
Mhm.
basketball as well.
For
And
sure.
just talk about Coach Facina and how helpful he's been here for you coming to Five Towns.
Well, firstly, he's been one of the most supportive people I've ever had the chance to work with. He's a great person. I can tell he's a great role model for these young soccer players. I missed their soccer season. I wasn't around for most of the soccer season, but I did watch games. But
that was a good one. That was a good one.
But I did have a chance, to see him work and to see him grind. Every weekend there's a new recruit, so it's a great opportunity to see, sit back and learn from him and his coaching staff because he's been someone that I can call upon. Obviously, Matt Gercio, our athletic director, he's been someone who's been a mentor for me for a very long time, and he connected me with Jason originally, and I think what he's building with the men's soccer program is the type of program, the roots of what he's building is obviously going to be a part of what we're all trying to do here at Five Towns because he's the standard. They've been around, they have the first championship, so the goal
They've
is
been
to
number
get
one
to
in the
first.
country. They've been very
Mhm.
deep in the USCAAs, and they've had
Mhm.
some big wins. So no
Mhm.
question that what Coach Facina has done
Great
is
program.
very
It was a great
special.
program.
Do you ask him for any advice then when it comes to, let's say, recruiting or building the
Yes.
program and the models? He'll talk about that for us.
For sure. I have no problem being truthful about this. I have no problem utilizing my resources, whether that be Matt Gercio, whether that be Jason Facina, whether that be Coach Jackson, whether that be Justin Stanley, our other assistant coach. I have no
Sure.
problem asking questions. Christine Fischlinger, our financial aid department, I have no problem asking questions. And I think, again, like when it comes to Coach Facina, his program and what he does for these students, I've seen what they do in the preseason, right? And how their student athletes have developed here over time. And I think they've had the first class. Now, this year would be the first class of 4-year student athletes. I remember Greg alluding to that with Nigel and Kyrie, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Those are some
Yeah.
4-year athletes. So I
Nigel
think for
Brathwaite.
soccer,
Yes.
yeah, so soccer just graduated their first 4-year class, I believe. So that's something that we aspire to be in as well because we actually haven't had a 4-year run at our college yet where we've graduated a 4-year class. So that's something where
Well,
Jordan. Mhm.
yeah, I mean, and I think that's a
Yeah,
great
so with
point
two.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a great point also because if you think about the program, it's really a program. It's really in the infant stages still. You think
Mhm.
about a lot of colleges that have been around. They've had years and years and years upon to be able to build this foundation. But at Five Towns, really, it's only really been a recent thing here where we see all
Mhm.
these different sports being added. We see obviously people like yourself who have a
Mhm.
decorated background and
Mhm.
obviously Coach Facina being part of that, obviously at Malloy, doing a
Mhm.
lot of great things. Matt Gershio, his experience in the game of college athletics, and Coach Litwood now also added to us
Another
here.
one, yeah.
Obviously, Greg. We had Christy Herring here, Thomas
Yeah.
O'Keefe, who was a part of the school. So it's interesting that I think we're building something here. And going forward, I wanted to ask you this question, and I'll come back to some of the players. And do you
Mhm.
feel like, in terms of going to put these building blocks in place here at Five Towns, that you kind of want to build a program where you have an identity where the players take the identity from kind of like who you are maybe on and off the court? Is that kind of a fair statement to ask you on?
No, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of the players this year played with a lot of passion. I think obviously there's a difference between my energy and I would say my predecessor's energy. I think for me, I'm one of those type of individuals where I'm overly energetic sometimes, So there's been moments, there's been games where I have to pick these young ladies up and I want them to understand, hey, we're going to go into every fight and I'm going to want to have each of you on my side. At the end of the day, I will go to war with these young ladies and our coaching staff. And it's that type of environment, just having them understand that we're all on the same team and we can do anything our mind obviously is set to.
Absolutely no
You know?
question about that. And of course, I want everybody to continue to follow the Five Towns Sound Athletics program on Instagram at Five Towns _ Sound. FTC Women's Basketball on Instagram as well. And my name is the host of the Sports Report and the owner of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. We're here with Mr. Corey Jacques, of course, the head coach of our Five Towns Sound women's basketball team. If you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, you can give us a like and follow on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, YouTube at Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 5 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. We're supposed to be back tomorrow, but it looks like we might actually have to have a schedule adjustment with Malloy, assistant coach Jason Cortieso. But we're here right now having a great time with Mr. Corey Jackson. Corey, you know who I have to ask you on? I know you spoke about them very briefly a little bit. Is Nikki and Abby Kemp? Obviously, we're going to lose them here, and certainly they had some big moments. They were really important players, I think, to the success of the program, soccer and basketball, and certainly we're going to miss them here at Five Towns. We had the good fortune to have them on Sportswire Radio a couple of years ago during COVID, and just talk about what they meant to the team this year and what to you in this time you had them here at Five Towns, and just the overall future for them and just everything else.
The camps were amazing. I mean, they've had the pleasure to be coached by a coach. They have the pleasure to be a coach's daughter. Which
I was going to say their parents. Yep.
Yes. So Nikki's mom, Nikki and Abby's mother, is a coach out there in Arizona. So I think for them, they've had a lot of experience coming into understanding, hey, we need to get behind the program. We need to buy in early because, they probably had some car rides, some very uncomfortable car rides. So they 100%, they probably had some of those. So I think they've learned how to adjust and learn how to communicate. I think this year, Abby and Nikki, they had a lot of, hurdles to overcome just in terms of whether it be, their play style, confidence, whatever it may be. But they had a lot of highs this year. Nikki had a career high. Abby led our team in charges taken before she got hurt, and Sydney took that over. So that was something for our team that they had major, major growth in. So for us, it's just been one step at a time,
Absolutely. That's why we always say sound on here at Five Towns College. And Maria Medina Monte, I had Maria on in the past, and certainly Maria is one of those that does a lot more of the talking on the court for sure. But she meant a lot here at Five Towns, and I think she was important. She was one of those quiet leaders, I think, on the program. And while you do that, I mean, Maria, talk about what she meant to the team, what it was like coaching her this year.
She is, again, another coach's treat because she's the type of kid where she's going to give you everything she's got. And she's also going to let you know what she needs to let you know. And I think for her as a leader, that's one of the best skill sets you can have because you're not going to sugarcoat anything. You're able to tell it straight. And I think for someone like her coming from Chicago, Illinois, she invested a lot in this program and the people within it. So for her, I think she's learned a ton. And just coaching her has been amazing just because she's such a cerebral player. She analyzes the game inside and out. She understands where her teammates are supposed to be. She understands the small nooks and crannies of the basketball game that most players don't care to learn. And I think with her, the biggest progression she made this year was being uncomfortable. I think for me as a coach, that's something that I find really, really valuable, is making someone uncomfortable. A lot of our practices were tailored to make our players uncomfortable. And at the end of the day, early in the process, some players sank, some swam, and, they adjusted though, right? They were able to get things down and they adjusted over time. And for us, that was the most important thing. And Maria really, really helped that progress, that progression this year, just in terms of a new regime taking over, a new system. So it really helped out a lot.
Absolutely. We wish Maria all the best, obviously, in terms of her journey in the game of basketball. I have no doubt that we'll certainly see a lot more from her in the future. And I have to ask you about this person because obviously we had them on most recently, and certainly she's somebody that can definitely she can talk a thing or two on the microphone, and certainly she can also certainly do some things on the basketball court. You touched upon her briefly. That is Sydney Mountain. Of course, we call her here the triple threat on Sportswire Radio because not only she can play soccer, she can play basketball, she can do this, and she certainly, I joked that she could just take over my job on Sportswire and it would all go well, and more people would probably tune in and listen. She got her own show Thursday afternoons on WFTU Radio, 3 p.m. Eastern time, so you can catch Sydney. She's certainly a huge Buffalo Bills fan. She certainly makes it loud and clear that she loves her Bills, but most importantly, she was a big part of this program. I know that she's going through some different things off the court, but I mean, talk about the triple threat, Sydney Mountain, and what it was like to be around her, because you did touch upon, you're kind of actually already familiar with the Mountain family already, Coach.
Yes. So going way back, my girlfriend's family knows her family, and they played AAU together. So
Oh
it
wow.
was,
What
yeah,
a
it was,
small world there, coach.
yeah,
What a small
extremely
world.
small world, extremely small world. So they knew each, yeah, like really, really small world. Like had them have a conversation and everything.
Oh
So
my
that,
God.
yeah, so that was kind of crazy. But learning that, they had known each other, that type of thing, as well as a girl that, well, a woman that my, ex girlfriend had played with. I think she was her assistant coach.
Okay.
Yeah, so it ended up working out for us. So I ended up knowing her as well, knowing a little bit of background information on Sydney, obviously. I know a trainer of hers. She's just been amazing because she's had to grow so much more, maybe in this year, than she's had to probably in the last couple of years, maybe combined. Not to take anything away from what she's done in the past, but I think this year she had to step into her own as a leader. I get it. She was only a sophomore this year. However, we needed her to act like an upperclassman. I do have a great story with Cindy, by the way. We were playing Word of Life this year, and we have a rule where if you take 2 charges, you get lunch on me. She wanted Chick-fil-A really badly that week, so she decided to step it up on defense. She took 2 charges, and she was down on the ground. She was grimacing. We were worried for a second because we only had 5 players at that time. We were up 15. We were nervous. We thought we were going to have to play 5-on-4. She gets
Oh.
up from grimacing. She's laboring. She gets up. She goes, "Coach, I need Chick-fil-A at the end of this week. You owe me lunch." During a game, just so she can take some charges. But again, that's someone who's got really high basketball IQ. She's really cerebral as a player. I couldn't speak more highly of just the person she is and just how much of a joy she is to coach on a day in and day out basis.
I'm going to follow up with the Chick-fil-A thing in a second, but I mean, you spoke about basketball IQ. Now, I've had on, as I'm sure you're aware of, a lot of different coaches, a lot of different players in the game of basketball. We spoke about the same point with Sydney. Now, you've obviously been somebody that has seen a lot in the game of basketball, and I'm curious just on how important, from your vantage point, now that you're coaching the game of basketball, on the importance of high basketball IQ.
I put a premium on that. Truth be told, our staff, I think they have what it takes to be head coaches in the future. So a lot of what we've collaborated on is making sure we're looking for the same quality in recruits, right? For me, at the top of the list is character and obviously high basketball IQ. The high IQ, that's something where you don't need that overmatched athleticism. You don't need to be the strongest person in the room. You can be the smallest person in the room. And at the end of the day, that I feel like I've learned in my journey that the smartest person lasts the longest, right? Some people can get to the mountaintop, but staying there is something different. And that's what I've learned.
Excellent point.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent point. Because it's funny
Mm-hmm.
for my wrestling fans and wrestlers that are on.
Mm-hmm.
We always talk about that in wrestling because
Mm-hmm.
then they say, "Oh, well, you get the title, and then it's everybody wants to knock you off, and then it's so difficult to be able to be a great player or a player that's continuing to be an important player on your team or anybody else's team. But you have to be able to stay there and to do those different things. And I think that's why it's so important to ask you that question. And I'll make you feel better about the whole Chick-fil-A thing, Coach. At least you didn't ask to take for Peter Luger's or Del Frisco's or King Umberto's, because then I would have said, Coach, I mean, Sydney Mountain's got certainly a very expensive appetite there, at least when it comes to Peter Luger's out there, Great Neck, or Del Frisco. So at least she said Chick-fil-A.
I agree with that statement completely. I agree with that. I was just happy that you got a combo meal. I was just happy about that.
Yeah, no, that's certainly. Trust me, I was joking with somebody. I was in Brooklyn a few days ago, and the person was speaking to me, and we were having a conversation. I said, I went to Applebee's and I bought a 12-ounce sirloin steak, French fries, mashed potatoes, and a Pepsi for $42 with the tip. So at least she picked a good place like Chick-fil-A. Thankfully, it was Chick-fil-A. But I wanted to ask you a question. In terms of, we spoke a little bit about the current program, some players that are going to be here, some players that are going to obviously have left a mark here, and I know that we'll have no doubt that they'll certainly be important to the program going forward. But in terms of just what our goals are going forward at Five Towns. What are some of those goals? Oh, and I think we lost Coach Jacques there. So certainly we hope that Coach comes right back on with us. We are on Sportswire Radio. And if you like what you hear from us, you continue to give us a like here on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. Also, want to give a shout out to Uncle Ralph of the Modern Day Mafia. And Uncle Ralph, it looks like we've got some new members of the Mafia. The family is certainly expanding here. So very, very happy about that. And if you are on Sportswire Radio, we are also always on sportnarium.com/plan. We will be back, I think, tomorrow with Coach Gordieso. Coach looks like he has a scheduling conflict, so it could be later than anticipated. We'll have to see what happens there. But certainly, if you are a fan of Five Town Sound Athletics program, I'd like you to follow them at FTC Women's Basketball, FTC Men's Soccer, FTC Women's Soccer, also 5towns_sound on Instagram. My name, you know by now, is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I am the host and owner of Sportswire Radio. I'll also be back here Friday for our wrestling fans. We're going to have live wrestling coverage here when it comes to the Phantom Phoenix, who's now the Phantom of the Phoenix here. It's the tag team championship match. We're going to see it Wrestling Appreciation Society's deadline. And Uncle Ralph says, yes, we welcome AJ Grimmer. And I was watching the match, by the way. Very impressed with AJ Grimmer at Consequences, by the way. And I have a feeling, Uncle Ralph, that the Mafia are going to be a huge part of things here, and Team Bentley and Team Disciple, because Uncle Ralph, I could not believe just seeing how many people it took to break up Disciple and Bentley. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen between those two on May the 20th, obviously, at the Fountains Church in Bradford. Just very, very, very curious to see what happens there, because obviously we know the stipulation is that if Bentley loses, he joins the Descendants, but if Bentley wins, he becomes the brand new GT Ministries World Champion. Something tells me here that Disciple is going to have something to say about this, and I am very curious to see about the future of the Mafia. The Mafia looks like they could be very, very, very stronger than ever in this tag team tournament that's going to take place, and something tells me here that Dave Douglas and AJ Grimmer and Uncle Ralph says it certainly was fair. You know, Uncle Ralph, I had said this to a wrestler. I had said this to them, I think yesterday, off the air, and I won't say the wrestler, and I won't say the company they work for, but I don't think I've seen an ending recently in our UK scene where it took that many wrestlers to break things up. Maybe in the LWF, I want to say maybe something happened with the Wrecking Crew and Synergy, but even then, nothing to the degree where it took that many wrestlers to get Bentley and Disciple to kind of keep away from each other, and it still wound up not being able to do the trick. So something tells me I just don't know what to make of the situation between Bentley and Disciple. I mean, it's almost, I don't know really where we go from here in the future of GT Ministries, but I know the Mafia is certainly going to be a huge part of it. And who knows, maybe some tag team gold in the future. I also want to wish Joe Cobra very well. Obviously, Joe Cobra certainly disappointed to see that he's going to be on the shelf for a little while once again. But knowing Joe Cobra, knowing how hard he's going to work, the Mafia is going to be stronger than ever when Joe Cobra returns. Because when he returns to the ring, you just wait to see what he's able to do out there. So listen, GT Ministries is in very, very good hands. The Mafia look to be better than ever. And by the way, Mafia got some great merchandise, by the way. So make sure you follow them. Modern Day Mafia on Instagram, Facebook. The family is stronger than ever. Just because of Uncle Ralph. Listen, only if Sluggerhampton would have listened to Uncle Ralph. I mean, Sluggerhampton wouldn't have to worry about fighting James Barris or fighting Grayson Riley to get his teeth into a CCW contract. I mean, some people might want to make that point there when it comes to listen, Mr. Hampton, but I certainly won't go down that road. But we are waiting here for the return here of Coach Corey Jacques here of the Five Town Sound women's basketball team. We continue to speak about the whole situation between Bentley, Disciple, the Modern Day Mafia, CCW, Miners Mania 2. I mean, who really knows what the future is in professional wrestling here? But I know one thing. We are back live Friday with the Phantom of the Phoenix. The Wrestling Appreciation Society is going to be in line for a tag team championship shot against Nonstop Action Wrestling's The Society's Callum Jakester, the Upgrade, and Remus Kane, who's certainly in CCW. A lot of people know Remus Kane is. He's been a big, big part of things here. So certainly very, very, very curious to see. But we are waiting for Coach Jacques. Obviously, could be some technical difficulties. Certainly, we will give Coach the benefit of the doubt. We will hang on tight to see where Coach is for us. But again, I cannot stress enough, if you are on Sportswire Radio, you want to give us a like and follow on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. We are on YouTube as well. So if you miss a show live, you can check us out on YouTube. That's at Sportswire Radio. We have a whole list of new subscribers. I want to thank everybody that is subscribed and tuned in here when it comes to everything else on Sportswire. So I appreciate all that good wishes, and I know that we'll be back here throughout the week. We've also got more wrestling coverage from our friends over at the Wrestling Championship Entertainment. And also, Uncle Ralph says, big things happening at Miners Minga too. Stay tuned for that. Well, I know Uncle Ralph, it ain't going to be you in Sucker-Hampton, that's for sure, because Sucker-Hampton certainly, he's got his hands full when it comes to Grayson Riley. Hammerhead Smith is going after him. We know that the war of words we've seen with him with the Killjoy, Dan Robertson, and then, oh, by the way, Hybrid's still the champion there. I mean, so it is a really, really intriguing Miners Mania 2. Very, very, very excited about that here on Sportswire Radio. We love Cutlery Championship Wrestling, one of the premier companies around here. If you like Cutlery Championship Wrestling like I do, and I know Uncle Ralph and many others do, you can go to Cutlery Championship Wrestling on Instagram, also Facebook, support their group, and every other wrestling company here. Also, the Five Town Sound Athletics program at FTC Women's Basketball, FTC Men's Soccer, FTC Women's Soccer, 5towns_sound, WFTU Radio. So we are just waiting here for the return of Mr. Corey Jacques, the head coach of our Five Town Sound women's basketball team on Sportswire Radio. We are also live here right now on sportnarium.com/player. And also, Uncle Ralph wants to say, I have things to accomplish with Modern Day Mafia. The future is gold. Yeah, I tell you what, AJ Grimmer, he's going to be a guy that I keep an eye on here. He looks like a Mafia member. He looks like somebody that could team up there with Dave Douglas. Obviously, Dave Douglas needs no introduction. One of the biggest and one of the most dominant big men in all of professional wrestling here. So certainly the Mafia, can't wait to see what goes on with them. Love to see the Mafia in some different promotions. I know we've seen kind of drips and drabs of them in some different places, but want to see the Mafia here. And it looks like here we have a message from Coach Jacques, and we certainly hope that we'll get him back on another time. But obviously, it looks like he's not going to be not with us, so I really do appreciate that. And if you are on sportnarium.com/player, it looks like we are going to be departing. It looks like here because unfortunately he has some technical difficulties, and no worries there. Okay, so if you are on sportnarium.com/player, probably go back to your regularly scheduled programming here soon. And obviously, we will see here what the future brings. We apologize here, but we are waiting for Corey Jacques, and certainly we want to thank everybody here for tuning in and also for wrestling coverage. We had abrupt wrestling coverage here on Sportswire, so obviously we look forward to that. But yeah, terrific addition to the Modern Day Mafia, absolutely. And I think I'm going to have to, Uncle Ralph, rewatch the match again because everybody has been speaking about how good of a match that was. I had guys tell me that they messaged me and said, "Did you watch AJ Grimmer?" I said, "Yes, I was watched the show. In fact, I watched the show twice about Consequences, and very, very excited. I'm fired up. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the next wrestling church, let alone here anything else. But obviously, again, definitely, certainly, it seems like here Coach has given us a message, and we have here one from Casey Jack Bradley. Casey, how are you, my friend? I saw you over at the CCW stream. Unfortunately, we had a basketball coach come on, but he had technical difficulties, and he's not going to be able to join us here for the rest of the show. But we were talking GT Ministries, Casey Jack, Bentley or Disciple. Who do you got? I mean, that's the $1 million question. Team Bentley or Team Disciple? Who do you think comes away with the GT Ministries World Championship on May the 20th? I guess we'll have to see. But certainly, again, we'll certainly hope to be back on. Again, I know I'll be back on possibly tomorrow night. I'll also be on for sure. Friday, we have a full slate of wrestling coverage, so you'll definitely be there. And also, Casey says he's Team Bentley. So why are you Team Bentley? I mean, everybody, disciple in the run he's been on, and the lawman Kyle Kennedy. And it looks like here we will get on Coach. Okay, so Coach is coming on. So all right, so we will have him back on. But the lawman, we were speaking college basketball, and then our basketball coach certainly is going to have special locals. He'll be back on, and we will definitely have him back on. All right, so we'll be messaging Coach here. So um, I'm ready to have you back on. All right, Coach. So we'll certainly see. Is that him now? We'll wait for him. But yeah, the lawman Kyle Kennedy, obviously a big part of last night's show with Sammy Rice, referee for Nonstop Action Wrestling and the Wrestling Appreciation Society. And obviously, the lawman's going to have a lot to say next week live with us on Sportswire. Very, very excited to have Mr. Sportswire back on. But enough of the wrestling coverage. And, Coach, we were doing impromptu wrestling coverage. And I had wrestlers left and right asking me, where is Coach? Then they were asking me on different stuff here in England because we have a big following. But welcome back, Coach. I have no doubt that somebody tried to definitely cut the lights, as you said, through us on Instagram. But how you doing now, Coach?
I am awesome. Thank you for allowing me to be back on. I'm just thrilled. I was having a blast, so I'm just glad.
I'm happy that you're on with us, and like I said, we'll definitely resume. And Coach, I wanted to ask you, obviously, in terms of the fact that we spoke about this program in terms of just the future. We spoke about players who aren't going to be a part of this, but they left an indelible mark here at Five Towns. But what are the goals for you with this program going forward? Now that you get a chance to have your first full year of recruiting, you get to put your stamp on the team and such. So what are your goals coming up here with this program?
I couldn't say it more than truth be told, for me, I couldn't say it better than, us having no ceilings, no limits, because that's what I believe in. And I think for our group and what we want to do moving forward, and the conversations I've had with our athletic director, Matt Gercio, President Dr. Cohen, I think for us, we really, really want to reach new heights and new levels. I think for me, I'm a little bit confident. I'm not a cocky individual. I'm one of those people who believes in the work. If we do the work, I think we can be one of the best colleges on Long Island in terms of what we can offer people, because our college, 40-acre campus, a nice, very nicely located area. I think for me, the people, the community, the environment, the academic services that you get in our college as well. For us, we have so much to offer. So the goals are no ceilings. It's making sure everyone understands who Five Towns College is moving forward. We get as much awareness as humanly possible out there. I would like us to be on different platforms. This is an opportunity for us, obviously, to make sure we can put the word out about what we're trying to do. We're trying to play a fast pace of basketball. We're trying to play in the half court as much as we can as well. But the goals of ours are as big as we can see. We've got to put in the effort, but it starts with having consistency. What we would like to do moving forward is start trying to do camps, implement clinics, have a preseason. What we've learned this year is that we need to take care of these young ladies, the student athletes, and we have to put them in a better environment in terms of when they're not playing basketball, we have to make sure they're taken care of in a lot of different ways. Our staff has learned that this year in various ways. And I think for us, what we can do to bridge the gap is have team bonding, things of that nature, where we have those nights or those weekends where it's just us against everyone else. And I think the more that we can implement of those type of strategies, I think that can really help advance this program moving forward. Because this year, don't forget, right? Last year they won. They had 3 teams in their conference. This year, we had 6 teams in our conference. And I think for us, that was another hurdle that we had to get over. But as we move forward, it's just adding pieces to the puzzle. Again, we alluded to Jordan earlier. She was the player of the year. So I think it helps. We just want to bring in as much talent and character as possible. I think those are the best 2 starting points for us, talent and character. But I would say character, obviously, comes number 1 overall.
Absolutely, no question about that. I want to give a shout out to our athletic director who's tuned in here at Five Towns, Matt Gershow. He says greetings, and I guess in a way you kind of won because all of a sudden people were
Mhm.
coming on Facebook, they were talking, so maybe it was a way
Mhm.
it was a good thing. You had some
Okay,
technical difficulties, but
I like
I'll
it.
come back
Okay.
to Matt in a second.
Mhm.
But you spoke about the campus itself, and
Mhm.
I've spoke a lot about this program over the past 3.5 years on Sportswire Radio, and I kind of think one of the biggest tools is where this campus is located in Dix
Mhm.
Hills. I think about our broadcasting programs we have here at Five Towns, WFTU Radio. I think about the mass communications program. I think about the hands on classroom settings we have here at Five Towns. I think about the programs we have that can allow our athletes to be excellent students and be the student athletes and the type of student athletes we want to have here at Five Towns. So for those that are listening and watching, I mean, talk about just how important of a tool that our campus is here with the programs that we offer at Five Towns for you to go forward and do the job that we know you're going to do here and make this program not only big, but also get the kind of people we want to attract here to do great things and represent Five Towns.
For sure. I think for our college, we have great community and student engagement. I think you can ask any student, any coach. I say hello. I'm always energetic. I want to make sure everyone knows I'm an approachable person. I'm not just the basketball coach. I'm here for every student's success, not just our basketball players. And at the end of the day, for me, it's making sure that all of our student athletes understand moving forward that if we do this together in terms of building it brick by brick, whether it's the camps or the clinics, things of that nature, I think those are the things that are really going to accelerate this program over time because it helps build the awareness, right? And I think that's another avenue that we can look to build upon. But yeah, with us having the players we've had, it's been special. It's been special.
Absolutely, no question about that. And I was also curious because, again, and I'll touch upon it for a few minutes. Your own background, you play in the
Mhm.
NCAA tournament. You coach professionally. You coach guys that were professional. You play with guys that did very, very almost rare things on the basketball court.
Mhm.
I mean, I kind of think, and tell me your thoughts on this. I know you're going to be very humble about this, but to have somebody of your stature coaching at this level of basketball,
Mhm.
I think is a pretty big deal. And I mean, do you think in some ways you can kind of be the biggest seller and promoter of this program?
I definitely don't want to take that title away from any of the other coaches that we have in our program. But in terms of what I know and the connections that I think I have, as well as our other coaches, I think that it's going to sell itself. In my opinion, I think what we do on the court is going to sell itself. I think what Matt Gershow and President Cohen are building here, that is going to sell itself. I think what I need to do as a coach is make sure these families feel comfortable about making their decision, whether it's trusting a first year coach, because that's not something easy. So it's making sure these student athletes and parents understand. I'm all ears. I want to make sure everyone understands moving forward with this program. We're going to listen first, and we're going to make sure that this is a family oriented environment. Whether it's family, whether it's friends, they want to come watch a practice, everyone is more than welcome to come watch a practice because we want people to see how we're going to work this year. I think there's a lot to prove moving forward as well. So it's a great place to start.
I definitely agree with you 1000%. And also,
Mhm.
we have something to promote because our athletic director, Matt Gershiel, wants to remind us that you will be at the Five Towns College open house this Saturday,
Mhm.
https slash
Yes.
backspace www.ftc.edu backspace RSVP backspace. The link is there. So let's talk about that. We have an
Mhm.
open house coming up here this weekend. It's going to be a big deal. Obviously, weather's getting nicer now.
Mhm.
It's lighter, longer, and people are feeling a little bit better about themselves. We're turning
Mhm.
over a new leaf. We've got a lot of different things to feel good. You always, when you get to March and April, you always feel good about things again and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So, I mean, talk
I
about
agree.
this open house that you're going to be a part of and just kind of how big this is for the school.
Well, I'm just honored at the fact that Matt Garcia, our athletic director, has allowed me to be on campus and be a part of what we're doing here every weekend. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for all of the coaches, the students, the faculty, right, administration as well, because our college has so much to offer, so much to offer. I get so passionate talking about our college because I truthfully love our college. I love the people. I love the players. Everyone that I interact with, I think needs to be put in a platform or put on a platform where people understand what we have to offer, whether that's our mass communication department, our business management programs, our audio engineering or recording programs, right? Because we have students in all of those areas as well. And what we had a chance to see with our mass comm department this year during our championship weekend, it was fantastic. I can't speak highly enough of everyone in that department, whether it's Bridget or any of the other people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis. Names aren't coming up, but I know they know who they are. But everyone in that department works their tail off, and it was an honor to watch those people grow and the student athletes just really showcase their talents. And going back to the original question, this open house, I think it provides a great opportunity for the coaches. With every coach, who Matt has hired, they all seem to be people who we all can get along, which is obviously a great place to start. We all have a really good relationship with Coach Litwin on the women's soccer side. Him and I have had a really good relationship. We're trying to already plan out how we're going to do things in terms of practice for next year. And I think those type of relationships help cultivate the relationships that we want our student athletes to have as well. And I think for us, this weekend at Open House is a great opportunity for everyone to see what our coaching staff, our athletics department has to offer.
Absolutely no question about that. And I think
Mhm.
what you said is so important is that you're on the same page
Mhm.
with the other coaches here, because I think you have to be on the same page because it's got to be a team sport. There's no
Mhm.
I in team. And I think that you and Coach Litwin coming in here, I see a lot of similarities in the enthusiasm. I see the positivity. I think you
Mhm.
guys want to be here. And not to say that prior coaches didn't want to be here at
Mhm.
Five Towns, but certainly I think that you kind of feel the energy here. And Matt
Mhm.
also wants to remind us one family here. And I think that
Mhm.
it's so important because I've always, when I speak with basketball coaches around,
Mhm.
and certainly at this level or in Division 3, it's always about
Mhm.
that family motto. And how true is that, especially from somebody like yourself who, again, has played the game, coached at a high level, and is now back at the game here now? I mean, just talk about what Matt Gershio put out here in this hashtag.
Well, I mean, we couldn't speak highly enough to that term. I mean, we've been through so many situations this year where we've had to become family, even if we didn't want to. We've had various situations. Maria Medina, who was playing her tail off for us in a game, we ended up being in the hospital twice this year until 2:30 a.m. I know she wouldn't mind me speaking about this because she's overcome some obstacles. That
Okay.
that young lady has been through a ton, and she still rises every single time to every single occasion. And these kids are teaching me on a day in and day out basis that some books you cannot judge by the cover. Maria Medina is one of those. And I think our athletics department really pulled together when she experienced a really bad concussion earlier in our season. And some coaches met up, athletic director Matt Gercio, Dr. Jeff. So there's been a lot of times where we've shown great unity. And I think for our basketball program, when it comes to the family aspect, the young ladies, our coaches and I, we have the type of relationship where we can hang out and not speak about basketball. It could be about obviously academics, how they're doing in school, and it'd be a free flowing conversation, no tension. And I think that's the family oriented environment where we talked about the mental health days, right? It's making sure everyone understands we want a bridge to be able to communicate. So I
Sure, sure,
think
absolutely.
Matt has created that lane for everyone in this college to make sure we can speak to him or anyone in general. He's created that avenue for all of us to be able to communicate in a space, obviously where everyone's opinions are heard. So I think that really helps.
I want to touch upon our athletic director while we have him here for a
Mm-hmm.
second, and Matt Gershio. And obviously,
Mm-hmm.
Matt has done a phenomenal job with the program. We've certainly been very fortunate to be able to cover the Five Towns Town Athletics program here for over about 3.5 years or so, give or take. And what's always amazed me most about Matt is that he's very hands on. There's certain athletic directors, I don't want to name names, you wouldn't even know who they are. You couldn't go
Mm-hmm.
up to them, you couldn't talk to them, and there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
political BS. I know you can't comment on some of that stuff, but I can because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not obviously in those shoes. But Matt, though,
Mm-hmm.
isn't that. Matt, you
Mm-hmm.
see, he even helps the soccer kids if they need water, if they need
Mm-hmm.
just some kind of guidance or anything else. He's very there. He's proactive. You see him all the time at the games with his, beautiful family and such. And I wanted to ask you, because obviously you've been ingrained in this program here on and off for a while. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
talk to me about Matt Gershio and just how influential he's been for you coming back here now
Mm-hmm.
and getting this job and helping this program, the whole program overall, continue to go to the places we know we're going to go. So talk to me about Matt Gershio and how influential he's been in your career.
Oh, he's been everything to my career, if I'm being honest with you, because he's someone that I've relied upon as like a mentor before he was even my boss, if I'm being honest. And I would
Cool.
reach out to him. We would speak probably once a month. We've met up a couple of times in the past just because I would pick his brain about what I needed to do to pursue a career in coaching. At the time, I was working for the Long Island Nets and the Brooklyn Nets, and I didn't have a chance to coach. I was in the room though, and that was the thing that I needed to learn from. And I think a lot of people, they want more than they can take on. And for me as a coach, I learned to understand what I'd be willing to take on. In that process, Matt was one of those people who I could rely upon in terms of, okay, Matt, what do I need to do in order to get a college job? What do I need to do to show people that I can coach? And he recommended to me that I get my skin in the game, whether it be high school or college. So he really gave me, we really had some great conversation back and forth before the pandemic. And what occurred was I ended up working at St. Dominic High School, which is located in Oyster Bay.
Yes.
And I worked with a guy named Mike Kelly, who was just amazing. He worked at Adelphi, Fordham, Hofstra. So he's also got a ton of background. He's got a
Hofstra
ton of
just
knowledge.
beat Rutgers in the NIT last week. I mean,
Yeah.
and Brad Weiss, the brute force, was just at a Hofstra
Yes.
game right before the end of the regular
Mhm.
season. So I mean, that's quite a basketball tree you came out of.
No, for sure. And it's just been an honor to be around people who've had a chance to be the smartest guy in the room. I don't ever claim to be the smartest guy in the room. I claim to be the guy who will listen to everyone who's the smartest person in the room, because I think that'll help me, sustain long-term success. And I think with this group of women, it's helped mold them as well. You know.
Sure, no question about that, and I
Mm,
always make you feel better, Coach. I'm usually the
mm.
dumbest guy in the room, so don't feel too bad. But I did want to ask you. Trust me, I'm only
Mhm,
kidding here. And
mhm,
Matt says thank you very much, and also Dr.
mhm,
Jeff also gives a mention too. But I wanted to ask you
mhm,
this question in terms of at the professional level, being there. You touched upon it, kind of in and
mhm.
out. What did you learn though from working in with the Brooklyn Nets, the Long Island Nets? And what do you apply from those experiences here at Five Towns?
Well, first off, I would like to start off, I think, in Alton Bird, Matt Riccardi, Kevin Conwell, Joe Cuomo, like I mentioned before. These are people who played an instrumental piece of, my journey, instrumental part of my journey, and just getting to these places. And just to kind of piggyback off the question, I felt as if learning and being in these environments, being around pros helps understand how to communicate with people and players. And I think that was the thing that helped me understand, okay, we may not see eye to eye maybe on the basketball court, but
Sure.
everything else is just as applicable. Everything else matters just as much. And there's some people who look at it like it's just about basketball, right? I think our staff looks at it like it's more than just basketball. And I think that's helped bridge the gap. And I think that's the skill set that the pros have helped me, provide to these young ladies. Where I think I understand which buttons to press, which days. Okay, this person might not want to speak to me today, or might not want to hear my voice. There'll be days like that. But as a coach, it's important to understand, who you're dealing with, your personnel, and that's okay too. You have to adjust to someone else as well. Not everyone has to adjust to me, and that's what I believe holistically.
No doubt about it.
Mhm.
And you get asked a lot about those professional experiences by the
Yeah.
girls. Did you get asked a lot about that? And what was that like almost? Because again, it's different.
Mhm.
When somebody else comes on and
Mhm.
maybe they're just ingrained in high school basketball or a college basketball, but you were at that level. I mean, so
Mhm.
what was that conversation like with the girls when they would ask you about those professional experiences and being there?
Well, a lot of the time I would allude to the practice habits that we did or didn't have when it came to those environments. But, when the ladies did ask questions like that, they were always sponges. At the end of the day, they just wanted to know and learn more. And that experience, whenever most people ask about it, I've got that from AAU kids and obviously our college players. For me, I always touch on the fact that with the G League and the Long Island Nets, we went to the G League finals. We won our first game and we lost
And the
two
Long
games
Island
in a
Nets
row.
right now, we spoke about it on Sportswire. I mean, they've been
Mhm.
arguably the,
Yeah,
the best team in New York. I
yeah,
mean,
they're really good now. I mean, and when I worked for them, that was when we first started back up in the Nassau Coliseum. That was when
yes,
we
I remember
first
because I
opened
I
back
used
up.
to I used to have
Mhm.
a sort of a partial plan with the Brooklyn Nets, and
Okay.
New Orleans Nets were the Brooklyn
Mhm.
Nets playing there in the Barclays Center in front of like 15 people.
Yes, yeah, 100% correct. I remember working those days. And Matt was
I
a mentor for me. Coach
I
Giselle was.
probably ran into you. I don't even know it.
I don't doubt that whatsoever. I was the guy wearing a shirt carrying the water.
Probably did run into you in those days, 2016, 2017, 18. Yeah, probably did. Probably
No,
did.
for
But yeah,
sure.
but it's
Mhm.
interesting about that because I think do you feel like in some ways that it gives you a certain level of respect because you were at that level?
In my opinion, I would have to respectfully disagree with that, only
Okay,
based on the fact that
sure.
I think what I found is a player has to respect your mind as a coach. How can you help them? How can you nurture them? How can you help them grow? I think the players, we had some exit meetings last week. And all of the players, which to our pleasure, they liked what we did offensively, defensively. So I think they understand, you know, as a coach, I know the X's and O's, but I think now I'm learning to understand. I need to know the Jims and the Joes, right? For lack of a better term, right? And that's kind of that's the maturation process of a first year coach, and I just embrace it. I love this. And the pro aspect, again, it's more so about what you know. What can you do for me lately? With most of these young ladies, whenever I talk to recruits, I don't talk to myself. I try to shy away from interviews like this for the
Okay.
most part. So
Okay, no,
I try to
listen, you
make
know what?
sure.
Because some people are different. Listen, I've had some
Mhm,
people on, they say, hey, when can I come on? When can I talk about
mhm,
this or that? So
mhm,
I'm so curious about that. And I want to give a shout out to somebody tuned in all the way
mhm.
out there from the UK, another professional wrestler.
Okay.
Walker Wall Street says, hope you are well. Yes, we are doing well, Walker. I will certainly make sure he's not from
Mhm.
Wall Street. His last name just happens to be Wall Street. But we'll definitely get him back on Sportswire very,
Okay.
very soon. But we are here with Mr. Corey Jacques of the Five Town Sound women's basketball team for the 25 minutes. You can follow Coach here at FTC Women's Basketball on Instagram. It is
Mhm.
Sound On, 11 hearts beating as one here with our Five Pound Talent program. You know, Coach, I have to ask you, but if I don't ask you about him, I will certainly not be doing my job here on Sports by the way. That is your former coach, Mr. Greg Drizel.
Yes.
Obviously,
Yes.
he's the coach at the men's team, and Coach
Mhm,
is an interesting guy, very, very
mhm,
interesting gentleman. Certainly, one
mhm.
of our favorites. Got a soft spot for him, and
For
I got to
sure.
ask you. I mean, talk about coach. Now that you're
Mhm.
obviously coaching alongside him here at Five Towns,
Yeah.
you played for him, and I
For
mean, just
sure.
talk about Coach Drizel and what's that
Mhm,
been like with the conversations now, where they've
mhm,
transitioned from when you were playing under him to now,
mhm.
I guess, coaching alongside him. So talk
Yeah.
about that for those that are listening and
For
boost to the
sure.
Five Towns here.
For sure. I appreciate that question. It's been quite the whirlwind, to be honest. I could imagine it's been more of adjustment for him than for me. you know, you,
Good one.
you know,
Good one.
because he goes from telling me what to do to us collaborating. So,
That's tough for
so
him. Knowing Drizel and his personality, very, very interesting in his mind. What's going on?
no, for sure. But he's awesome. Like I think Greg, honestly, when it comes to the playing aspect and the coaching next to him aspect, as a player, you knew that he loved you and he cared about you and he wanted the best for you. But
He
as a
does. He
coach,
does.
of course, right? But as a coach now, I understand the things that he puts into it on a day in and day out basis. He loves these guys. He wants to be committed to them. He's building a program. When I first got a chance to watch them practice, the first thing I mentioned to him was, "This is the highest character team I think you've ever had here at this college." That's not a slight on any of the young men who played here before in the past, but I think a lot of the kids that they have are going to be instrumental in how this program develops as they move forward. Because Damani, obviously, as you know,
I've
great
had
kid.
Devon on here a few times. Yeah, we still want to get him back here.
Mhm,
Obviously, becomes the second
mhm,
player in the school's history to score 1,000 points,
for
leads the
sure.
conference in scoring. We've had him on. Another guy can
Mhm,
certainly talk, has certainly a future
mhm,
doing this if he wants it. But no,
mhm.
Damani,
Great
we've had
kid,
him on,
great
I
kid.
think 3 times I've had him on Sportswire. One of our
He's a great
favorites for
kid.
sure. Yep.
Great kid. And that's what I mean. So Greg is the type of person who's just set the tempo. He set the tone with the type of players that he wants to recruit. And I think for me, it's been a great template for me to kind of learn from and just, be able to pick his brain and ask him questions. I can call Greg at any time, any day, and be able to call him. And we've had that relationship, though, ever since I played for him, if I'm being honest with you. We would say,
Sure.
"I love you" on the phone every now and then. I mean,
Wow.
I know he probably doesn't want to admit that. Sorry, coach.
Yeah, Coach probably would. Knowing
but
Coach, yeah, he probably wouldn't.
But that's the heart he has. So I can't speak highly enough of him because I know he's got a big heart, and that's like you said, he's kind of got a teddy bear aspect to him where
He
he's really
does.
tough
He
on the
does.
outside, but he's a softie on the inside. Sorry, coach, again, but he's doing great things for the men's program. And I believe that they're heading in the right direction for certain. They have the right type of kids, so I can't wait to watch them grow.
Absolutely. Jan Filip Jagielski, certainly one of
Yeah.
my favorites out there on the
Mm-hmm.
court. The
Great.
Polish prince there, they call him, I believe. So
Yeah.
certainly one of the favorites. But
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask you, just to look back
Of
very
course.
quickly at Five Towns. Kyrie Sawyer, he's been
Mm-hmm.
talked about a lot here on Sportswire. He's
Mm-hmm.
been kind of the gold standard, the first
Mm-hmm.
great player here at Five Towns, and he's obviously the school's all-time leading scorer. What
Mm-hmm.
was it like playing alongside him, and what made him the player he was?
Well, he was special. The thing about him was his competitive nature. I think his drive, his instinct to win, his instinct to want to dominate the person in front of him. I think when you play with him, you understand how special he is. If you're playing against him, you want him to miss every shot. But when you play with him, you think every shot is going in. And he's the type of kid who takes no days off. He's all ears. He's all eyes. He's all locked in from day one. He's the type of kid who's cerebral. He thinks the game. He understands angles. He understands driving angles, gaps, things of that nature, different defenses. So I think for him, getting a chance to watch him grow up and mature as a freshman, he could have hit the bar inside of a barn, but his jump shot improved more than anyone. But I can say this because he knows he's like a younger brother to me, and his jump shot has improved more than anyone I've seen from their freshman year to their senior year. His jump shot had improved dramatically. So again, that's a testament to Coach Drizel's player development and what he's doing with Kyrie, because Kyrie was a great kid, great teammate. He cared, he listened, he was dedicated and committed. You can't ask for more as a teammate.
Absolutely. I almost felt, and I know there's different players, but Jordan Tobin and Kyrie are very similar personalities, very soft-spoken, but what they do in terms of what they mean to the teams and just the work ethic, the team aspects of it, I think they're very similar. That's kind of why they're two of the gold standards here at Five Towns, especially for the basketball program. And, I did have to ask you about Coach Matego, because I know you know Coach Matego
Of
very well,
course.
and I obviously know that there's a little, because we do a lot of St. Joe's on Sportswire. Obviously, Mr. Gershio, Mr. Facina, that could certainly be a different topic for a different time. But the basketball team, we're very close to a lot of the players. We have obviously some of the guys coming on here in the next few weeks on Sportswire. But Coach Mateko, I know obviously when you were starting out, he certainly looked at you as obviously somebody he would have liked to have had for us here for our Golden Eagles. So talk to me about Coach Mateko and just what he was like in that prospect kind of early on in your career, and just any other memories of Coach John Mateko.
Of course. I mean, honestly, Coach John is a legend on Long Island. I think most people
I know that. Oh, listen, if you ask me, and you can say nothing on this, it is still an albatross and a travesty. He is not in the St. Joe's Athletics Hall of Fame.
Right. I actually know a couple of coaches who are in their Hall of Fame, and I know they believe he deserves to be in there as well.
They should listen. That program without him, they should build a monument outside of the Danzy Center and just his name on it, because what he did, taking that program to basically what it was, they were pretty much like a high school intramurals program to what they became under him, nationally ranked, hundreds of people at games, and a who's who of players there: Chris Jimenez, Chris Niblock, Vinny Musso, Olivier Laurent. Listen, David Ackrey. We could go on and on and on. So I'm just going to say it here humbly. To me, it's an absolute disgrace and an abomination. He's not in the school's athletics Hall of Fame. That's all I'm going to say.
No, for sure. Did Andy play from a kid named Andy Laurent?
Yes. Andy came after Olivia. Andy played with Brad Weiss, the Brute Force. Yep.
Oh, really? Okay. So I know Andy. He worked with the Long Island Nets for a little bit, actually.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Wade Richardson also. We know Wade obviously on Nets. Listen, a lot of guys there. Yep.
Yeah, Wade was a great guy. We started out together in very similar just settings in terms of being, lowest on the totem pole. But I wasn't as lucky as Wade.
I know. And Wade, by the way, I have to give him a shout out because he actually got me free tickets to a Liberty game last year with Brad Weiss. He got me good seats, by the way.
I don't doubt that. He's the man.
He is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
We've always had great conversation and interaction. Wade is one of those people where, obviously, playing at St. Joe's, he was one of those people that in the community, he's always done a lot of stuff.
Yes,
I think he's the head of community engagement for them right now.
Yes, he is. Community relations, yep.
Yeah, so I remember him starting out. So it's just a treat to see some of these people that you start out with and where they're going now. Andrew Kobian. I think you guys have had him before.
I haven't. So, Coach Kobe, I knew this was coming because Coach obviously
Mm-hmm.
was the Long Island Nets and also with Hofstra.
Mm-hmm.
Coach,
Mm-hmm.
so he had a show called Coaches with Coffee, which, by the way, if you were
Yes.
starting out, you would have been
Yes.
on there. So a
I
prime
listened.
candidate. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I listened, and that was a show that I used to get a lot of inspiration from because he had on
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Hyland from John Jay, had a
Yeah.
bunch of them, Sean Flores, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Vicina also goes way back with
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Coach Kobe, but we haven't had
Mm-hmm.
him on, but certainly we know each
Okay.
other very well. So we ran in a lot of same circles. Mr. Andrew Kobe. Why did
Yes.
I know that his name was going to come up?
I know Coach Core is also actually Sean.
Yes, and but Coach, by the way, if you
Mm-hmm.
heard, he was actually doing coverage for Manhattanville in the Skyline tournament.
Really?
He was doing their games. Yep, Coach Flores, who,
Okay.
by the way, had a broadcasting background. I actually interviewed Coach
Okay.
Flores right after the end of the CCNY season in 2020, so I know Coach very well.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, he's at Sarah Lawrence. He recruited one of the kids I coached in AAU. Right? He's at
Yep.
Sarah Lawrence now, correct? I think
He was at Sarah Lawrence. Yeah,
Okay.
he was there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I know he's doing a lot of great things in general. I know he builds a lot of great relationships.
Yes.
He's been in our gym. We've had great conversations, man. Great people. And I know Coach G as well from St. Joseph's, who's now at Malloy.
We're supposed to have him on tomorrow,
Yes.
but unfortunately, there's a scheduling conflict. Yes, Coach Gordiaso, who
Sure.
always jokes with me, he said, "Oh, well, you had Ryan Hyland on 5 times, so I'm counting. I'm on the 5th time, and yada yada yada." So yes, Coach is one of our favorites.
Race to 6, right?
Well, you might get there. You might get there at this rate.
That's the hope. That's the hope. I know him very well. He used to come to our practices as well. So, but going back to Coach Matejko, yeah, knowing him, he's just the legendary coach of St. Joe's.
Yeah.
I will never forget. It was a 2.5-hour drive. I live in North Valley Stream, so at that time it was like 5:30. So it was like a 2.5-hour drive towards near North Holbrook. I'll never forget that. So I wasn't the most thrilled, but I remember watching them play. I think it was against Yeshiva at that point in time, and Yeshiva had not hit in their stride like they did.
No, that was way before Elliott Steinmetz.
Yes.
Sure.
So I remember getting a chance to watch his team dominate that league, and they had a kid who was Player of the Year. I forgot his name, but tall guy. I'm not sure, maybe from Suffolk County, but I had a chance to watch them play and attend a game. He was just amazing, and actually.
Are we talking about Vinny? Are we talking about Vinny Russo?
No, Coach Peck. Do you know Coach Peck?
I know Coach Peck, but I meant the player you referenced at St. Joe's might have been Vinny Russo, he scored, I think, like 1,000 points in 2 years. It was Chris Jimenez also. It was Chris Jimenez was big on those teams. You probably watched.
Big. Yeah. It was a big. I forget. Maybe Chris. You said Chris?
Jimenez, yeah. Chris Jimenez. He played on actually both of the NCAA tournament teams, and he was good. Okay. He wound up coaching. He had an assistant job briefly at Farmingdale, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar off the top of the head, but I will do my research.
All right. Mm-hmm. But Matejko, obviously, big part of who you are today, and obviously what he did with those teams. No question. I see a little bit of inspiration, but I realize obviously I can speak a lot about you, and I want to touch upon for a few more minutes the Five Towns team. But I had to ask you very quickly, and being in the NCAA tournament with Madai, what was that experience like, and just being able to kind of be in that moment in the NCAA tournament?
It was something. Actually, I have here our participant pass.
Wow.
You can't really see it here. Hold on.
I see it. No, I see it right there. 2015, March 6th to 7th. What a small world.
So it was, and this is the net. This is a piece of the net that we cut down when we won our championship. So I will never forget these moments. My goal is next year to give a piece of this, a piece of this net to each young lady and let them know, hey, like now this is our turn to try to make this thing a reality. So that's a goal. And I think for me, the NCAA tournament was something that changed my life. I had a chance to be in an environment where you got to see the best of the best. We got a chance to see Worcester, Mount Union, some of the best schools in Division III at that point in time. We had played Baldwin Wallace, some great schools academically in the North Ohio range. Like we had played in West Virginia. That was where we went to Marietta College. We played 2 kids who were All-Americans, first-team All-Americans. So it was an amazing experience. And honestly, I look back on that experience and I don't regret a single thing. I got hurt my freshman year as well. But, there's a lot of bumps and bruises, on the journey to becoming a coach.
Sure.
In our first season, there was a lot of ups and downs, but it was the type of thing that really propelled me to want to be in basketball.
Oh, no question. I mean, being there, and I've asked some different guys, and I think the player you might be speaking about from Suffolk County, now I'm thinking about it, was a guard, but was big, was Trey Black at St. Joe's, because he was a guy from
That
Suffolk
sounds really
County.
familiar. That sounds really
Trey
familiar.
Black, and he's close with Coach Drizel. And what he
Okay.
did with the ball was him.
Mhm.
That team you probably saw when they were nationally ranked. It was Trey Black, it was Vinny
Mhm.
Russo, Chris Jimenez, and Olivier Laurent. Between the four of them, what
Okay,
those guys
yeah.
did with the basketball, I'm pretty
Was
sure now.
Coach Heenan on that team? Was Coach Billy Heenan on that team?
So Billy Heenan was on the 14-15 team. That was the team that
Mm,
went to the Skyline Final, which another guy we've had on. We know Billy Heenan very well from Amityville. Yep.
yes. Okay,
So
that was around that time,
okay.
2013, around
So,
2012,
so
2013.
then we might be talking about Fernando Vasquez, Isaiah Moore. Those are the players you
I
probably saw.
remember the
Not
kid
the
Moore.
12.
Yeah, he had
Yeah,
dreads, right?
Isaiah
If I'm not
Moore.
mistaken. Yeah, long
Yeah,
hair.
Brad played with him. He played with that core. The team I was
Okay,
referring to was the team that was nationally ranked. I mean, they were like,
okay, I'm
and that
familiar.
and Kevin
Hmm.
Spann was the coach of those teams with Billy Heenan, which I'm sure you know Kevin
Yeah,
Spann.
of
Kevin
course I know
Spann.
Kevin's fan. Actually, the brute force. Mr. Weiss might know this as well. So,
Share, do share.
so I actually used to work with Mike Rossetti, who was out of 3D
Yes.
Rossetti. I'm sorry, 3D Athletics in Holbrook. So that was an environment where we were consistently our practices for the AAU team that I coached, the Long Island Swarm.
Yep.
Our inception was at St. Joe's College. We would practice on Sunday mornings, and Coach Kevin Spann would let us in on Sundays,
Yes.
and I would pick his brain.
Oh wow,
Small
what a
world,
small world! And yes,
really
Kevin
small world.
Spann and
Mhm.
his cousin is Danny Green. Everybody knows Danny Green on Long Island.
Yes, of course,
Everybody knows Danny
of
Green. It's
course.
like you mentioned. It's like in Brooklyn how everybody would mention Chris Mullen. Oh, you know Chris Mullen? Yeah, but it's Danny Green. It's the same thing. It's
100%.
like you know Danny Green. I'm like, yeah, all right. So I figured that was going to come up. But I could ask you a lot about personal stuff, and I really want to
Mhm,
come back for a few more minutes as we get to
mhm,
closing thoughts about the basketball team. And first, I
mhm.
want to ask you: was there one or two moments that stood out most this season that made you most proud about this team?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's a really great question. Oh yeah, there's been too many to count if I'm being honest.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, these kids have really learned to dive in, and I think that was the thing before they. I think they had to improve upon, which was being in the moment. My coach used to have a phrase. My coach Mike Blaine, up in Buffalo, he was a Division I assistant for 12 years, and he became a head coach. And the guy was a genius. I think I learned everything I could from him. He was the most basketball centric, type of individual you can imagine, where eat he would eat, sleep, breathe nothing but basketball. And I think for our program, what we're trying to do moving forward, and this year, the moments that I found, just that really made a difference in our season were number one, our first game. That was something I really was proud of as a coach. We won by, I don't really want to discuss the amount, but I will say I will say it was a pretty large amount. And for our school, it was the most points that we ever scored in the game offensively. It was the most field goals we ever made in the game. It was the most 3-pointers we ever made in the game. It was the most assists our college has had in a game. So we won by 80 our first game against a team that was struggling, but they're going to be really good in the future. However, we were really prepared, and we made it to the championship our very first weekend, my first weekend as a head coach. So we kind of had a really good game. We put together a good game against Penn State Scranton. We lost to Central Penn in the championship. We were up 14-2, and I regret that moment as a coach because you can't take those moments back. And I told the young ladies, I'm not afraid to admit when I make mistakes. We were up 14-2. We should have got it done. But that was a moment that I think was a huge turning period for our team. I think they believed that we can beat anybody at that point in time, because I think they reached a level that we had not ever gotten to, just personally for some of these women.
Sure.
And then I would say the second moment would be the second half of the year when we had just had to we had to overcome a ton of adversity. We were decimated by injuries the second half of the year, as you know, and our last game that we actually played in, we started out playing a 5-on-5, as you know.
Yep.
We had Sydney Mountain go down with an MCL injury. Bone bruise. We also had Maria Medina Mata go down with just an untimely concussion, because she was really kicking butt out there. And I know she's so competitive. I know she really wanted to be out there. So you just felt bad for those two because they know how to compete. They really stepped it up another level this year. And then Nathalie Dorset, she owned her career high was 4 points last year. She had 14 points. She hit 3 3-pointers in a game for us. Those are the things that make us happy as a coaching staff. And having a chance to see them grow in that light, those moments, we ended up playing a 2-on-5, and we ended up being victorious by the amount of points we had on the board. However, we had to forfeit the game due to the fact that we only had one body on the court. So it was unfortunate timing, but, I think we learned to prioritize and maximize our moments and our opportunities. And that's, those were probably the two biggest moments where we learned that.
Yeah, I think sometimes in adversity, that's where you learn. I'd always taken this advice from somebody. They said,
Mhm.
when you win, you don't really think about what you did wrong. But when
Mhm.
something happens, whether you lose or go through an unfortunate situation, that's where you learn to be either a better player, better person, better teammate, whatever it is in life. And I kind of think that's kind of where I think this team going forward is going to do some really, really big things here. And I'm really excited about the program here, especially with you at the helm and obviously everything I think you're going to do here, get your first kind of full year in terms of recruiting. And I did want to ask you one of these two last questions, which the first one I think is the most important on. I know there's something you're doing upon here coming up. If you'd like to promote it here on Sportswire Radio for the program for the girls, I think that for those that are listening and watching, they might like to hear about it.
For sure. So we are actually looking to have a couple of camps this summer, as well as a prospective student athlete day, where the recruits that we've been talking to, whether it be juniors or seniors, have a chance to come down, visit the college, things of that nature, and get a chance to see what our environment, our community is about, as well as have a chance to play some pickup, get a chance to stay overnight, meet some of our players, some more of the students on campus, get a chance to maybe spend time in a classroom. So we want to have an opportunity to have these young ladies that we're trying to recruit because the kids we're trying to bring in are special, special, special. Because, right, we talked about it earlier, the character that we have in this program already, it's top tier. And I think the type of kids we're trying to bring in, there's a couple of kids from Queens, a couple of kids from Brooklyn, the Bronx, Long Island. Obviously, we're trying to bring in. So we're trying to keep the kids in our backyard home.
And I think that's so important what you
Mhm.
said, because not to bring up the prior administration here, but I
Mhm.
mean, what I think was done was they didn't focus on Long Island. They didn't
Mhm.
focus on parts of Brooklyn, parts of Queens, where I think that Five Towns is very close to, especially in Queens. A lot of
Mhm.
basketball talent out there in Queens
Mhm.
that doesn't get recognition, doesn't get a shot. And I think with your ability to network and to be able
Mhm.
to promote the program, I think that's where we're going to have a really big advantage going forward, because you're going to tap into Nassau County. You're going
Mhm.
to tap into the Queens-Nassau border. You're
Mhm.
even going to talk maybe point about places like me here in Brooklyn and Staten Island. I think
Mhm.
that's really where I think the program is really going to shine. That's why I'm really, really excited about you at the helm here. But before I get to closing thoughts, I want to ask you this last question, because I could
Of
talk to you
course.
all day. We're going to definitely bring you back on for
For
sure.
sure.
You're definitely going to be on. Don't worry about that. Let your
I
heart not be
appreciate
troubled.
that.
But
Mhm.
what do you want to say to anybody for the first time that's hearing about the women's basketball team, or to anybody that has supported you this season and is going to continue to support you going forward, anybody that might support the program but is just kind of getting to know you and what you're going to do here for this program? So what do you want to say to anybody in those groups?
Well, first things first, I'm appreciative of this opportunity that you, President Cohen, Dr. Cohen, obviously has provided me, Jason Facina, obviously Matt Gercio, and I would like to thank all of the other head coaches and assistant coaches at Five Towns College, faculty, administration, and staff, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do it. And I know it sounds extremely cliche, but I'm one of those people who thinks everyone matters. You can be the janitor. You can be someone who does this, that, or the other. I think every role plays an intricate part in success. And I want to make sure everyone understands I'm a selfless leader. I am the type of coach where I do not care if I get the credit. I think you had to track me down to do this to do this interview. I don't
Maybe.
like getting the credit. I'd rather our players and coaches get the credit. I just want to thank our assistant coaches, my associate head coach Ashley Jackson. She has an extremely bright future in this thing, and she's
Yes.
a great role model for any young woman. I could not speak highly enough about her and her skill set. She's going to be a head coach one day. I will make sure I do everything possible to promote her story and who she is as a person, as well as our assistant coach, Justin Stanley, who does not get a ton of credit, but he was someone who was actually on the previous staff before. But he is like, Coach Jackson is like my right hand. He's like my left hand. And at the end of the day, I could not live without both of those two. I'm excited to have those two back into the fold. So we're actually going to have, our coaches being consistently here. And I think for us, it's establishing a program. You have a coach who's crazy enough to believe. You have an athletic director who's crazy enough to believe. You have a school and a president who's crazy enough to believe. And at the end of the day, if you're looking for a college that's going to give you what you're looking for, but also make sure that you're taking care of outside of your sport and going to give you the best opportunities to succeed, whether it be in the classroom, on the field, on the court, whatever it may be, Five Towns will give you the best chance to be who you want to be.
Absolutely, no question about that. Five Towns is definitely, as I always say, one of the places to be. It is definitely a place that is always going to be sound on. It is one of the premier athletic programs, and large part because of people like Corey, Jacques, who are going to, I think, add even bigger and bigger things here to a already exciting program, which has just added lacrosse recently. We've seen esports expand. We've seen, obviously, what the soccer teams have done, certainly the men's basketball team, what you guys are doing with the women's basketball program. Volleyball's had some success. So a lot going on here at Five Towns, and I want everybody to follow Five Towns Athletics at 5towns_sound. But Coach, I want to give you now the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say, and hopefully you do want to come back on. I know we had a lot to track you down here, Coach, but obviously don't want you to be a stranger here on Sportswire Radio.
For
but
sure.
Anything else you'd like to plug, share, say, the floor is yours, and fire away.
For sure. I mean, well, I just want to kind of put out there what we're trying to do as a program, make sure everyone understands the mission and the message. We're a college who's committed to making sure, we're about giving you the best on the court, in the classroom. I think Matt Garcia is building an amazing program. I think Jason Facina is doing a great job. I think Greg Giselle is doing a great job. I think Coach Litwin's doing a great job. Obviously, the other coaches as well. I haven't had the chance to have in-depth conversations with everyone else as much. But I know in speaking to them in passing, like, I can just tell. I see what Matt's aiming for, and I'm so thrilled and excited to be a part of what this college is building. And I'm just honored to have, been on this show and give our student athletes a platform to be heard and to be seen, because I do have to say it. Maria Medina Mata, Sydney Mountain, Abby Kemp, Nikki Kemp, Nefeli Dorset, obviously Jordan Tobin. I want to thank you guys. Obviously, Ashley Jackson and Justin Stanley. I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. This season has not been anything without the people in it. You guys have taught me a ton. I look forward to growing with the rest of this group. And someone who does not get any credit at all, but is a big piece to what we do. Her name is Judith Garona. She's from Spain. You guys did not have a chance to see her play this year, but she's a special, special, special person. And I can't say that enough, because she has so much to offer as a person, as a student athlete. But unfortunately, this year she was injured during soccer. She had an ACL injury. So you guys didn't have a chance to see her play. But I promise you this, if you do, when you guys do, just remember the name, Judith. She's going to be really special next year. She was a big piece of our team this year. She just wasn't in a situation where she can travel with us as much. But I don't want to take anything away from her, because she is a special person, and I'm excited to have a chance to coach her next year, as well as the other young ladies. So thank you to everyone who had a part in this season. Whether you said hello, whether you came to a game, whether you walked in the hallway, it does not matter. We're appreciative of your time, and we're looking forward to building some great things here. And I appreciate you, Tom. Thank you so much.
Don't worry about me, but Judith sounds like a player we'll definitely talk about in the future. And I want everybody to talk about the future of Five Towns Sound at FTC Women's Basketball on Instagram. You can follow Coach Jackson, the program. Obviously, a lot going on at Five Towns. Obviously, we'll have some new recruits, some new players coming in here. Really, really excited about the future of the program. Also, 5towns_sound. Please follow the program. them as well coming up here on Instagram. So certainly it'll be 1% better every day with the Five Town Sound women's basketball team. I have no doubt about that here. Coach, it has been a tremendous honor. I can't thank you enough. I'm looking forward to having you on here. I'm looking forward to covering the team during the season, watching more games, and certainly success that will certainly breed no doubt from you and everybody else. Also, shout outs to your coaching staff as well, Coach Stanley, Coach Jackson. Obviously, Coach Jackson is a friend of ours here on Sportswire through the Brew Force. So thank you, Coach, and looking forward to the future here at Five Towns with you.
Likewise, I couldn't be more appreciative. I'm extremely grateful. Thanks, Tom.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the head coach of our Five Town Sound women's basketball team, Mr. Corey Jacques. As Coach Jacques is getting ready for the second season here, he'll be here at Five Towns and obviously follow all the team's success and everything else they're going through at FTC Women's Basketball on Instagram, 5towns_sound on Instagram. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you're on sportnarium.com/player, we'll go back to your regularly scheduled programming in a little while. In the meantime, you'll hear some music. But if you're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, we might be back tomorrow night with Coach Gordiesso. Unfortunately, Coach has some spring workouts at Malloy, so we'll have to see how that impacts us, but we do hope to be on with him. If not, we'll be on with him another night. But thank everybody for tuning in on Sportswire Radio, the number one global radio station. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are.